So are we putting our camera on or how
Yes.
do you? Yes, okay.
All right, we are live. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the climate change. Welcome back to the climate change challenge sessions with our experts today. And all this time, since a month now, we have been discussing the problem of climate change. We have now realized that climate change exists and the problem is grave. However, it is now time for us to think of different solutions. And today in our session, we are going to focus on problem solving. We are going to see how two cool initiatives in India are trying to fight climate change towards by changing the notion of fashion industry. Why fashion industry of all many things? Because it is one of the most polluting industries out there, adds immensely to climate crisis, and you will see today in greater detail on how this impacts climate. And more importantly, we have today social entrepreneurs with us, LataSita, which is run by Meghna Nayak, and OhScrapMadras, run by Dominic Lopez and Priyanjali Basu. And through these young women, you'll get to discuss with how they are changing the notion of fashion. What are the why do they think so strongly for fighting fast fashion and help the climate? And what are the challenges they also need to face in their path? It is important for us to acknowledge these because if we want to become entrepreneurs ourselves too, we need to know what that path looks like and learn from these role models. With that, I'll introduce Gayatri. Gayatri Sridharan is a PhD student at Laboratory of Conservation of Endangered Species, one of the key people in running the Climate Change Challenge, and she'll be moderating the session. Over to you, Gayatri.
So hello everyone. Hello Dominique and hello Meghna. I think Priyanjali will join in some time. The first question that I have when we knew that we are going to have this session on uh, how lifestyle affects climate change is over the past decade when ethical fashion became sort of very comfortable or popular term for us. We've been listening to this term called fast fashion. Like I would like to start with you, Dominique, to introduce the problem to our audience. Like, what is fast fashion and why is it like fast? And overall, what is the impact that fast fashion has on climate change? Because that is what we are interested in. Yeah. So over to you, Dominique, to introduce the problem to all of us.
Well, first of all, good morning and thanks to all of you for joining us today. So what brings us all today is because ideally we should all try to be a little bit more conscious and we all want a greener planet. And so today's topic is on climate change and fashion industry and fast fashion. So I'm going to share my screen because there's a little bit of material that we have prepared for you. So I'll just open it up. And here it is. So you've already know about climate change and the reasons behind. You must all know that the Earth's average temperature is usually around 15 degrees. But what the scientific have now demonstrated is that the temperatures are rising faster than any other times. And why are they rising? It's actually due to the greenhouse effect. There's actually a natural greenhouse effect, and this is how the atmosphere traps some of the sun energy. And without it, the planet will be hostile to life. But the problem is that with the industrialization and other intensive activities on the planet, we are adding to the natural effect with gases, the carbon dioxide one, the CO2. We are releasing them in the atmosphere and trapped it in the atmosphere. This is the reason why the temperature of the planet is increasing. So if we want to stop this global warming effect, we need to reduce the emission of CO2. When it comes to the Earth getting warmer, it means that the Arctic, the Antarctic are melting, the sea level are rising, and consequently, there is an urgent need to limit the greenhouse gas emissions of CO2, to limit the temperature to rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. In today's world, India is ranked 4th among the top emitters of CO2. And in 2015, India has, among 50 other countries, has signed the Paris Agreement, which says that they will be committed to control the rise of the CO2 emission and try as much as possible to control the planet getting warmer. Though when we look at what are the most aggravating industries in the world, which means which are emitting the most of the CO2, it appeared that the garment industry, which what we call also the fashion industry, is the second most emitter of carbon dioxide after transport and energy. The gas emissions from textile production actually amount to 1.2 billion tons annually. And this is actually more than the emission of all international flights and maritime transport combined. So what really makes the textile industry more one of the largest CO2 emitter? Well, first of all, to grow natural material, which will be your cotton, your hemp, you need agriculture. To produce a synthetic material like your polyester or your nylon, you need fossil fuel and you need, industries and factories. So to give you some example, for every ton of polyester produced, it is estimated that 9.52 tons of CO2 are emitted. So also what happened is that once you have raw material or once you have the fabric, you need to transform it into garment, which means that once again, you're going to emit CO2 by making them. So it's stitching in large factories. And of course, that's going to be adding to your carbon dioxide emission. And then these garments are going to be transported all over the world. The raw material, the cotton, for example, is going to be going from where it has been grown to where it's going to be turned into cotton and turned into a t-shirt. And this also will emit a lot of carbon dioxide. So to give you some ideas, if for a single pair of jeans, on average, 34 kg of carbon dioxide are being produced. And this is similar to driving a car for more than 100 kilometers. Another idea of the amount of carbon dioxide needed is the production of a t-shirt in China. And this t-shirt produced in China before hitting the shelf in a store in the US, for example, is responsible for the emission of 1 kg of carbon dioxide. Then finally, there's also something important to take into consideration is once the garments are disposed, those who are not sold are usually burned. And the others, once you finish using them, are thrown in a landfill. And once they're thrown in the landfill, when they decompose, they also emit carbon dioxide. So all of this globally in the supply chain, plus, taking care of the clothes, plus how you dispose of them, are responsible for emission of carbon dioxide. The textile industry is not only the biggest emitter of carbon dioxide, it's also one of the largest polluting industry. producing garment is very water consuming. And also it pollutes a lot of the water. 20% of the global water pollutions come from fashion industry. But I want to stop on one in figure with you this morning. To produce one t-shirt and one pair of jeans, 20,000 liters of water are needed. One t-shirt production is equivalent to 3 years of drinking water for 3 years of drinking water for an average adult. So I think not only the fashion industry is emitting a lot of CO2, but it's also polluting a lot of the planet resources. So I've mentioned the water for the consumption, for the production of the raw material. Also the use of chemicals, the washing the fiber, bleaching, dyeing. Most of these chemicals, most of these products are also ended up in running waters. And all these are needed for the finished material. High volume of water are also used and discarded, and they are responsible for foaming, for toxicity in the aquatic life. So that is really to take into account. And then once again, I've point out to you in terms of waste in the slide before, but the solid waste pollution is also tremendous. Globally in the world, and each year, about 90 million of items of clothing are ending up in the landfill. 80 to 90% of the items are actually non-biodegradable, because they consist of polyester and of synthetic fabric, which means that if by any chance they start to decompose, they will be still decomposing in 400 years later. So the textile industry is really resource consuming and CO2, one of the most of the CO2 emitters. And on top of this, what happened over the last 30 years, there have been a drastic change in how fashion has been considered with the development of what is called fast fashion. What is fast fashion is basically the production of cheap garments, which are produced and replenished on the shelves very quickly. They tend to be really trendy, of course, obviously, because they appeal to a large audience. And they also made in mostly with synthetic material. And what happened with the development of these fast fashion brands is that they have been pushing, thanks to marketing and other means, for a higher consumption of these garments, and hence for much more production of these garments. So nowadays, more than 80 billion new garments are produced globally, which is way too high to mean the minimum demand of garments of the actual population. So just to show you an example, I'm going to share with you a little videos which explain all of it. So it's the life cycle of a t-shirt, and we all found that it was a really relevant information to show you this morning. So I'm just going to click and hopefully it's going to work.
Consider the classic white t-shirt. Annually, we sell and buy 2 billion t-shirts globally, making it one of the most common garments in the world. But how and where is the average t-shirt made, and what is the environmental impact? Clothing items can vary a lot. Typical t-shirts is like on a farm in America, China, or India. Cotton seeds are sown, irrigated, and grown with fluffy bolls they produce. Self-driving machines carefully harvest these puffs. Industrial cotton gin mechanically separates the fluffy bolls from the seed, and the cotton lint pressed into 225 kilogram bales. The cotton plants require huge quantities of water and pesticides. 2,700 liters of water are needed to produce the pattern of t-shirt, enough to fill more than 30 bathtubs. Meanwhile, cotton uses more insecticides and pesticides than any other crop in the world. These pollutants can be carcinogenic.
Seek wisdom at a world top 100 university in Perth, West.
Some t-shirts are made of organic cotton, grown without pesticides and insecticides. But organic cotton makes up less than 1% of the 22.7 million tons of cotton worldwide. Once the cotton bales leave the farm, textile mills ship them to a spinning facility, usually in China or India, where high-tech machines blend, hard, comb, pull, stretch, and finally twist the cotton into snowy ropes of yarn called quills. Then yarns are sent to the mill, where huge circular knitting machines weave them into layers of rough gray fabric, treated with heat and chemicals until they turn soft and white. Here, the fabric is dipped into commercial bleaches and azo dyes, which make up the vivid coloring in about 70% of textiles. Unfortunately, some of these contain cancer-causing cadmium, lead, chromium, and mercury. Other harmful compounds and chemicals can cause widespread contamination when released as toxic wastewater to rivers and oceans. Technologies are now so advanced in some countries that the entire process of growing and producing fabric barely touches the human hand, but only up until this time. After the finished cloth travels to factories, often in Bangladesh, China, India, or Turkey, human labor is still required to stitch them up into t-shirts. Intricate work that machines just can't do. This process has its own problems. Bangladesh, for example, which has surpassed China as the world's biggest exporter of cotton t-shirts, employs 4.5 million people in the t-shirt industry, but they typically face poor conditions and low wages. After manufacture, all those t-shirts travel by ship, train, and truck to be sold in high-income countries, a process that gives cotton an enormous carbon footprint. Some countries produce their own clothing domestically, which cuts out this stage. But generally, apparel production accounts for 10% of global carbon emissions. And it's escalating. Cheaper garments and the public's willingness to buy boosted global production from 1994 to 2014 by 400% to around 80 billion garments each year. Finally, in a consumer's home, the t-shirt goes through one of the most resource-intensive phases of life. In America, for instance, the average household does nearly 400 loads of laundry per year, each using about 40 gallons of water. Washing machines and dryers both use energy, with dryers requiring 5 to 6 times more than washers. This dramatic shift in clothing consumption over the last 20 years, driven by large corporations and the trend of fast fashion, has cost the environment, the health of farmers, and driven questionable human labor practices. It's also turned fashion into the second largest polluter in the world after oil. But there are things we can do. Consider shopping secondhand. Try to look for textiles made from recycled or organic fabric. Wash clothes less and line dry to save resources. Instead of throwing them away at the end of their life, donate, recycle, or reuse them as cleaning rags. And finally, you might ask yourself, how many t-shirts and articles of clothing will you consume over your life? And what will be their combined impact on the world? When we produce TED-Ed videos about the environment, we often...
All right, so that's, we thought that this video was kind of, sorry, I'll just stop it.
about the young people who subscribe to this.
All right. Okay, so that I think that was quite instructive. I'm gonna now. So what we need to keep in mind, and I'm just gonna show you a last slide, before Priyanjali just continue, is that actually what happened is that the fast fashion industry is pretty new in India, but it's not that new in the rest of the world, like Europe and United States and other developed countries. But anyway, there are a lot of things, and I think the last part of the movie was already giving some example in terms of there's a lot of things that we can do to avoid fast fashion. And so there are a few items that we put together in terms of how to take action in trying to reduce our own carbon footprint, and how to make sure that at the end we making better choices for greener planet. Of course, the first thing is to go and try to buy less. What we also intend is buy better, which means that instead of going for eventually a fast fashion brand, rather looking at more sustainable brand, also looking at avoiding buying synthetic fabric like polyester and nylon, but rather going for cotton and other natural fabric. Buy differently, we meant that by trying to, instead of buying new, identify second-hand, eventually rent. Wear longer is also very important. We tend to get bored or discard our clothes very quickly. And if we were to wear them or keep them, continue wearing them longer, then obviously we might need less new ones, and hence, reduce our carbon footprint also. When we take care, we need also to take better care of our clothes once we have bought them, wash less or wash better. And finally, what is now the upcoming trend is, of course, is going for repair, recycle, upcycle, as well as donating, of course, instead of just throwing them away or selling them as second hand. So that was last of our slide on the introduction of the problem.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think we know what fast fashion actually means now, and definitely we're very clear on what is the impact of fast fashion on climate change. So as Somdata mentioned in the introduction of this session, so today we are focusing more on how to solve our problems. So since both these organizations and all of you are change makers in a way, I would like to ask this one. I would like to start with Meghna. How to avoid fast fashion? So, Dominique has given us a few leaders on how you can buy less, or you can wear things longer, buy quality stuff and use it for longer time. She's given us some points regarding that. So, as the founder of LataSita, which is also an upcycling fashion brand, what are your takes on avoiding fast fashion? And yeah, so what do you think about that?
So hi everyone, really happy to be here, and thanks Dominic for the presentation. So avoiding fast fashion, it might seem hard, but let me tell you, in my 8 years of working, I have realized after working with, hundreds of women, thousands of saris, that honestly speaking, everything you need, you already have. It's just about being willing to engage with it on a deeper level, and spending that time, effort, and patience in actually reimagining and revisualizing what you already have. We don't actually need to buy new. So you can, as Dominic already said, now it's repairing, recycling, reusing, and sort of trying to get as much wear out of your clothes as possible. And as she also said, it's now become a trend, but it shouldn't be a trend. I mean, it is become a trendy thing now, but to be trend led by fashion is one of the worst things you can do. Fashion is led by trends and is wasteful, but style is timeless. So think about it in terms of style and your personal style, and having very few items in your wardrobe, having quality over quantity in today's world full of consumerism and waste and the negative impact of fashion. Just having a well planned wardrobe itself is a small act of rebellion, you know. So the main thing is time, and this is what people don't want to give. When you see bright pictures online, when you can just click a button and get something the next day or the next week, we've become used to it. In a Pavlovian way, we've become used to that system. But when we are prepared to give a little more time and effort and energy and switch on to that process of how are our clothes made, which is what we try to do at LataSita. When someone comes in, our supply chain is this room to this room. You can see the clothes being made and the clothes being sold. It's total transparency. The tailors are completely aware of what prices they are being sold at. The customers are completely aware of who made my clothes. It's right there, unavoidable. So, try to be creative. If you don't have the time, seek out people, seek out brands like LataSita, for instance, who will give you that time and that effort to reimagine your own wardrobe. You don't need to be a slave for fast fashion. Just because you're getting adverts on the internet doesn't mean that you need to respond to it, and you'll be surprised at how little you actually need to get by.
That is very right, Meghna. Also, something, this is for my curiosity. The name of Dominique's and Priyanjali's foundation of their brand, which is OhScrapMadras, is like very right there. Like they use scrap to upcycle and produce something new. I was just interested to know what is LataSita. Like, how did you invent that name for this sort of a brand?
Well, I'd love to tell you a really long, good story. The truth is, I started LataSita when I was 25. I was working in an office, I was working as a journalist, I was kind of disillusioned. And trust me, I wanted to create something. I've always had an interest in textile and in design. And when I finally decided on my raw material of choice, I was so excited. I just made a Facebook page and just put it online and registered it. It was all within like 1 or 2 days. Now that I'm older, I take much more time to actually come to decisions, and it has to be a reason or a story. LataSita is a word that came to my head. To me, it was very feminine, very Indian, and very memorable. So I just Googled it to make sure that there's nothing else called LataSita. And it was a very Indian sounding word to me. So when I Googled it, the only thing I found was a resort in Europe, I think in Spain or in Italy, called La Tacita, with a Tacita. And that's when I thought, hang on, it sounds really international as well. The phonetics of it, I just liked. It was memorable. And I went with it. Maybe now I would think 20 times about what to name something or what is the thing. But I was young, I was excited, and I just did it. And it seemed to have been a good thing because somehow everybody remembers it. It's kind of like Google. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a word, and to me it's very feminine and Indian and traditional. Funny thing is, people think, and I didn't want my name there for whatever reason. I didn't want to be like a own designer name brand. So people sometimes call me and they're like, can we speak to Lata? Lata ji hai. And I'm like, there is no Lata ji. It's just me.
Yeah, right. So now coming back to our discussion, so Priyanjali, as part of this OhScrapMadras, where you try to fashion new things out of scraps, and also being a fashion designer, I was interested. What were some of your practical challenges, like in driving against the popular notion of fashion, like? All of you guys do not really produce garments to produce. Like you get scrap and you try to make something new out of it, which might interest people. So Priyanjali, you have something to tell us regarding what were your challenges as a fashion designer to drive against all current notions of fashion.
Well, morning everyone. Hi Gayatri, hi Domi, hi Meghna. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can also turn your video on, Priyanjali.
Okay, I tried that, but I am having tech difficulties. So as long as you guys can hear me, I'll try. But my video is not coming on. But is it on now? Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you now.
Okay. Hi, morning everyone. Hi, Meghna. I haven't seen her in a long time. We've known each other for a long time. Morning, Domi. Well, we've all been doing this for a really long time. Honestly, like for me, it's been 12 years. And again, like Domi and Meghna said, that we all have this thought that we want to do something, but when you're younger, you just want to go ahead and do what you believe in. And at that point, I came back from London and I felt that there was no Indian textiles that were turned into contemporary classic garments. And I was trying to go against fast fashion, trying to work with weavers. So I spent a lot of time trying to prove to the world that cotton is great, and how you can make classic clothing out of it. And like how Meghna mentioned, that I was trying to convince people that not to go for trends and instead buy really nice saris, go dig into your mother's cupboards and find what they have, mix and match, and create your own style. So for me, it was a really long journey to convince people. And then of course Fashion Week and celebrities started wearing sustainable clothing, and suddenly it became a part of fashion, and which was great because it gave all our weavers a place in the fashion map of India. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but when OhScrap came about, it's been a few years that Dominique and I have been talking about it, because I was already talking about how we have to be conscious about the clothes that we make. And like Meghna mentioned, that we've always been very transparent. We have tailors, we get the fabric from the weavers, we know, we design. So it was a very transparent process. But even after doing that, while I was styling for movies or ads, I could see the amount of waste that was there from the things that we were creating, plus the things we were using for shoots. So when Domi and I decided, we definitely didn't think there was a market. We were like, who's going to buy things, out of scrap? And then we started thinking about designing, and that's why it's very important to understand what you're creating in today's world, because just for frivolous things truly don't matter to me anymore. So even when we were designing, we said, okay, let's think about what are the things we can change instead of plastic. So the whole range of Christmas toys that we came up with was that let's create things that can alternate for something. So we wanted to clear out plastic, so we went into bags and Christmas toys and now pet beds and many other things. So the designing is very important for us, because again, in OhScrap, we don't want to create something just for the hell of creation, but more like thoughtful way of doing things. So, but yes, it is a much tougher place for all of us, because it's not yet cool to be sustainable, and we don't want it to be cool. We want it to be a part of our daily lives, because our mothers and our previous generations have done it. Somewhere we went into fast fashion and so I think all of us are trying to get that consciousness back. Gayatri?
Yes. Sorry, Priyanjali. Right. So both Meghna and you were saying that you were very young when you had these ideas in your head, and the the excitement of that age really brought out the fearlessness and going around and doing something as also a part of the rebellion, as Meghna was saying. So, like I wanted
Also,
to ask
just like to
Dominique
add,
also. Yeah,
it's not really, it wasn't so glorified when Meghna and I started. To be honest, like no one really understood what we were doing. So it has been a long journey to make people realize what we do. And yeah, so it's been tough. But it's been great to be recognized now for these things. And the fact that we're talking about it, it's great.
Yeah, I would
yeah.
love to
So,
talk a little bit about the design challenges as well. Like you said, any practical problems that you've had in designing from scrap and waste. So
right,
I would
right.
love to talk about that a little bit at some point.
Right.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask another question here to Dominique, which is on like, does she have any particular interesting experience or anecdotes with regards to this, because we are from a country where like all of us had this discussion when we were trying to host this session, that in our country, when it's something when there is a festival around, or if it's somebody's birthday, you definitely don't want to gift something to them which is made out of scrap or waste. So as founders or persons who started this idea of OhScrapMadras, so do you have anything related to that to share, Dominique? Like when you started thinking of designing buntings and torans which were made of scrap for Christmas decorations, did you really go through any practical challenge of convincing people to buy it? Because Christmas is a festival and people really might not have wanted to put something made of scrap on their Christmas trees. So anything related to that, Dominique?
Well, I think first of all, you shouldn't be looking at scrap as something, negative. On the contrary, I think, it's not. They say what you see on the internet is waste is not waste until you're wasted, and honestly, this is the same way we are seeing all the fabric cut that we are collecting. This is nothing which shouldn't be. This is something which should be looked upon, something which is nice. And we actually, along with Priyanjali, who's the designer, we're actually managing to make out really cute products out of the fabric scrap that we're collecting. So I think the only limitation in this is really your own mind, in you being or yourself, not being able to see what is beyond what you have and what you could do with what you have left. I think we have been me on top of this, me growing up in Europe and in a very industrialized continent and country. I think we all been completely conditioned and to the fact that what is great is new. And I think this is where we need to completely change the mindset. We have lovely things which are old and we can repurpose and that we can continue using. And obviously, if we want to keep our planet safe and have a bright future in it, we definitely need to change the perspective, and as well as changing the discourses, as well as changing how we our connections with the objects and with our garments and with our clothing, among other things.
Yeah. Yes. So now coming back to Meghna, she was talking about some design challenges. So I think this question, all of you should answer this question because like I've heard about a lot about how fast fashion, also we saw that in the video, that there are a lot of communities in the middle, like from a brand that you see on some online selling site, to when it comes to your doorstep, there are a lot of communities which are actually involved in the process. So, Meghna, would you like to talk about what are the different communities that are involved in it, and what involved in the whole process of generating something from scrap or upcycling something from something that is old, an old fabric, and what do you really think is the effort is to outcome proportion? Like, this is something that we also hear as science students a lot, because we are told that maybe you put in a lot of effort, and maybe at the end of the day, the outcome that you receive in terms of maybe monetary benefits is what the larger world thinks of as an outcome. So is there kind of a disbalance there? Like, you have to talk and coordinate with a lot of communities, both the organizations, and after all of this effort, is it sustainable as a business model as well? Why I'm asking this specifically is because we might have some aspiring fashion designers or people who want to start ethical fashion among the students that we have listening us. So what do you have to say to them? Like, what are the communities involved, and what is for you the effort is to outcome proportion here?
Okay, it's a great question. There's a lot to it. I'll try to keep it short. But
Yeah.
when you think about, you really have to look at business in a different way. When you're working with scrap, firstly, it's extremely labor intensive, and it's just not the normal production process. Moreover, earlier, just to refer to a point we were talking about earlier about the superstitions and the aspirations regarding old cloth. Firstly, getting people to wear it, to choose it as a choice, even for their wedding, which is what I do. It's a whole other thing. If you guys are having trouble getting people putting ornaments on a Christmas tree, imagine wearing it to your own wedding. Because especially in India, you have a lot of superstitions and aspirations associated with old cloth, and a lot of judgment. There are some people who would never consider it also. So in the same way, the interesting thing is that even tailors have this judgment and superstition and aspiration. And this is something I learned on the job. So my tailors come from a village near a place called Diamond Harbour, and they come on the local train. And the local train is full of Master Gs and tailors, because their area is full of tailors. And after about 4 or 5 years, after quite a few years of working with me, one funny story, so my tailors come in a compartment full of other tailors working for different brands, and in their compartment were people working for Sabyasachi and Ritu Kumar, etc. And just last year, I realized this, that after years of my tailor working for me, he was lying to the people that he even came in the compartment with, and he never revealed that he worked with old cloth. And it's just, I had won this competition last year as Eco India. It was this German channel and Scroll, and there was a documentary made about us, and it was broadcast. A lot of fanfare was made, and Master G was in the documentary speaking. So I sent him a video of it on WhatsApp, and I gave them like a recording of it. And after he showed that video to his community family, was the first time he started telling people he works with old clothes and old scrap. Before this, he was pretending that he makes like lehengas or something. Even he was embarrassed. So that is like it was a key thing for me. And if you look up that documentary, it's very short, like 7 minutes something, you'll see that even he says very late. I told him, please be completely honest, on when they interview you. I didn't expect him to be so honest, where he said, when I started, I didn't even like it. What is all this torn, stained, chera, phata? And then he said, as time went on, I understood. And this was actually the biggest struggle for me, is training the tailors to work with it and getting them engaged. All my tailors are Muslim tailors from a village called Kobira, a couple of hours from the city. And, they are used to a very different kind of production. And it's been a personal journey with them, trying to explain, educate, have discussions, show documentaries, translate them to Bengali, and try to make them understand why we are doing what we are doing. And it's not like they were the most highly trained people either when I first got them. As I said, I was very young. I got who I could. It's not like I got the most experienced person or that I even had the contacts to. I got these two people that grew to 3 and then grew to 4, etc. But they had their limited expertise. So it's been, 7.5 years of intense training them and gaining their acceptance. And say if you're talking about community as well, all are, one of the biggest impacts of fashion on climate, what Dominic was talking about, is the transportation of fibers and fabrics all across the world and even within the country. So our material, what I love about the solution of using a sari as your main raw material is that your raw material is completely local. You're not even, so that way you're working with the local community of women to get your raw material. You're working with this community of Muslim tailors, which have huge other problems of their own, including political problems and, discrimination. especially with stuff that was happening just before the pandemic. So then you have that. And we are a social enterprise. So I work with the local community, and right from day one, sort of donating, distributing has been an integral part of LataSita. And in fact, in the last few months after COVID and Amphan, I think the social enterprise part of the work has really come into play, where literally all of my staff had their homes destroyed or their roofs blown off, and we haven't had any business since March. The studio has been shut. It's been a very difficult and dark time, especially given what's happening in the world. We are just really lucky. We have we have a really strong community of customers and clients as well. But production has been shut. They can't get to work. There are no trains. So in these past months, we have, I have repaired their houses, their roofs. We've sent over 1,000 tarpaulins, over maybe 3,000 kilos of food, over 1,000 kilos of baby food. We are now involved in building a school in the Sundarbans. Now, all of this has cost me massively in terms of profit. So this is the crux of the matter. Businesses in the traditional economic model are legally bound to maximize profit for their shareholders. Now, this is a very key and important thing. You're legally bound to maximize profit for your shareholders. In today's world, when we think of profit, it's a purely economic definition, which is massively flawed. This is the standard, the status quo of the world today. So when you look at profit only as economic, it is not going to be a sustainable or a good business. But if you look at your profit as social, environmental, and economic, if you look at your cost as a human cost is also a cost, and you start looking at the very definitions of profit and loss differently, which is a personal choice. You have to police yourself. I could today choose to do 10 things just today, which would actually enable more money in my pocket and larger margins for me, but I choose not to. So, even this is for all of you in school, listening to this, no one is going to tell you what to do. You have to decide for yourself what is wrong or right. In fact, the way the business world is designed, it is designed to push you into unethical practices and exploit people and the planet. But really, it's up to you to make that change. So if you're talking about effort is to outcome, it's up to you what outcomes you want. I have many of my friends would earn a lot more than me, but I am absolutely passionate about what I do, and I have tailored my lifestyle to fit into what I earn, and I am happy with that. I don't even aspire to be a millionaire or a billionaire, because I genuinely believe you cannot be a billionaire without exploiting people. So it's about your personal aspirations, and there is a lot of effort required. Whether or not the outcome works for you is up to you,
Right. So what does OhScrap have to talk about this? Like with respect to, we have had this discussion even before with you, Dominique, about what do you perceive as an outcome for the efforts that you are currently doing, even in the pandemic, with respect to the masks that OhScrap produces. And so what do you think, both of you, Priyanjali and Dominique?
So I'll come in before Dominic starts. I'll agree with everything Meghna said, because when you start a sustainable business, you have to keep few things in mind, that it is not about profit and loss. You will have to figure out ways to make money through that process. But having said that, since this is a place where a lot of students are listening, I would definitely say it's very important to have some skills. So what I felt during the process of, even when I started Priyanjali as a brand or OhScrap as a brand, it was very important for you to understand what skill you have, because not necessarily you can always make money. But like, I lived alone since I was 16. So for me, it was very important to be economically independent. So when even OhScrap started and we designed and we made the products, it was very important for me to have a business plan, because I knew that I had so many lives to take care of, and I could not pay their wages, not pay for their transport. And for example, like a pandemic that happened, we had to support a lot of the people who were working for us. So we knew that we wouldn't be paying ourselves salaries, but at least we needed to have a business plan and a marketing plan in place so that we're able to sell the products, to be able to get that money and then pay the people, whether it's our weavers. Like for example, none of my weavers are working because again they're in Bengal, I live in Chennai, but we've had to communicate and send money and send, but where is this money coming from? So we've had to figure out business plans, we've had to figure out funding. So there is a lot of back end work that goes in, because not necessarily all sustainable businesses are successful. But as a person who's starting off, it's very important for you to have a plan, a business plan or a marketing plan, because at the end of the day, you have to make some money to pay all these people back. Eventually, I think 4 or 5 years of running my business, I paid my first salary, because everything that I made, I would rotate it back to the business, create a new textile, and that's what we're doing with OhScrap. Whatever money we make, we generate it to teach women a craft or a skill, so that even if Tommy and I don't stay, they'll continue to work. So we're trying to create a sustainable model that can exist with or without us, which is very important for both of us. That not necessarily everyone who's working with us will work with us forever, but at least we're training them with the skill and the knowledge of basic business and marketing so that they can continue without us. And I'll let Domi finish the rest. Domi?
Yes, Gayatri was mentioning about the pandemic. I think, I think it was really important and it is very important for Priyanjali and I to have a huge social component in OhScrap. It's not only about, trying to do best or better for the planet, but it's also making sure that whoever is joining the venture is taking care of economically and socially, is also growing into the business and the journey. It means that, it's more training, it's learning new skills, so it's empowering women. So I think all of these social components are really, really important to us. So it's not only running a business, it's also working with people. It's also, human being that you make sure that you're taking care of, and that, you take them along in this journey, and, they grow with you along with the brand. So I think this has always been very important to us. So what happened, you were mentioning the mask, Gayatri. So what happened is, like, when the COVID-19 pandemic started, we were all on lockdown, including our tailors. And so with Priyanjali, we both realized that the need of the hour was protective masks, so protective face masks. So through the lockdown, so that was through the first hard lockdown where we know we were not able to go out, we still managed to provide some of our tailors some machines so they could work from home, and we started making masks. And some of these masks we actually, thanks to a donation scheme, we actually managed to distribute more than 500 masks for free to people in need. So in sometimes it's not only about making money. Indeed, it's about how you see your business growing and how you want it to grow, keeping in mind that you don't want to do it only for yourself, but you want to do it also along with other people and for other people. So that's another example of how we do work with Priyanjali.
Yeah, thank you, Dominic. So now, to satisfy the curiosity of both me and also the people who are watching this on YouTube, so I'll start with Meghna. So what do you actually make? Like, we've been talking about scrap and fashion, and is there something that we can see to know, like, how fashionable can scrap be?
Yes, I'd love to show you. I've, put together just a few pictures. You have to excuse me. The thing is, when you make from waste, you can't ever replicate, which is a wonderful thing, but it's also a problem. So I have hundreds of pictures of different garments to show you. I've really just pulled a few random ones. And what I also wanted to show you, and just keep in mind one thing, that the design process is the reverse. I can't, for instance, dream of, like, say, I want to make this blue dress. Then I go and search for the exact shade of blue I want. And the right cloth with the right drape, and you can't. It's the complete reverse. You're working with what you have, and that is what restricts you. But I don't want it to look like patchwork or DIY. It should be something that is quality and lasts forever. Let me just try sharing my desktop. So I don't want someone to look at it and think that this is made from scrap, or that this is old. I would want anybody, or even the poshest person who has the biggest prejudice against old clothes, to be intrigued enough to kind of turn themselves on to the process. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah. I'm just going to show you just a few pictures of some of the clothes that I've made over the years. Here you can see, lots of different silhouettes. And everything here, I want you to remember, is made from old. Nothing new has been used in the process. Most of them, like this jacket, for instance, is reversible. And that's real silver thread over there.
This is really hard to believe, Meghna. I should admit that I wouldn't know if it is made of old cloth unless you told me.
You really have to work extra hard. Maybe not internationally, as Dominic also was saying, that internationally you have already an acceptance of vintage is a different word, but here old and used or katran or utran is like a bad word. So yeah, you have to really turn people on to the design process. This is just some of the press. Luckily, I don't think there's a newspaper in India we haven't been in. We've been on TV, internationally. So we've been very lucky. It's all been word of mouth. This is a whole other series that I did. I won't get into it too much now, but all of these hoodies were made from a puja pandal. And it took over 2 years to revive this cloth and layer it, repair it, fix it. And it's I'm sure there are many people who can say this, but I can confidently say this is the most sustainable hoodie in the world. It's not made from anything new except world's best quality zips and fixtures like the ribbing. It's going to last for life. It's really warm. It's made with, maybe 8 layers of cloth. So there's all kinds of ways you can work with scrap. This is a slip-on sari, which takes like 2 seconds to wear. This is also like a jacket, one of our signature designs. These are some pants. And the other thing I'd like to say is none of these pictures have been professionally shot. These are just either I have shot them, or we have such a fantastic group of clients, and customers that it just keeps sending us pictures. And I have, in 8 years, I have not had to spend even a rupee in marketing. It just grows on its own. All of this stuff is done by people and sent to me or taken by me. And I think that's quite remarkable. I love that.
Right. Also, Meghna, something that I was just curious to know is, so usually when we order something, we receive it in packages like plastic. They're usually plastic. So
Yes.
how do you send your parcels to people? Like if somebody from...
So this one, by the way, is made from old wedding saris, which I'm sure you can tell. So this is as far as I've ever gone into making packaging, is for our bow ties here that you can see. But all of these years, I make bags from all the scrap that I have, and we send it in those bags. And in all of these years, from day one, we have never used any new paper or plastic. Now, this is another thing. It relates back to the whole thing of effort versus outcome. I have a local network of, and again, this is another community we work with. I have a local network of offices, schools, and individuals who are always ordering on, whatever they order on Myntra or Amazon or whatever it is that people do. And, I have all their packages I collect. And I sanitize them, and then I use them. So I use those plastic packets, and I have a wide network, and people are real consumers, So even after all these years, I have enough plastic and paper to keep me going for probably another year. But at the end of the day, it's cheaper to just buy plastic packaging or buy paper. But it takes a lot more effort to kind of maybe go from door to door and do that, but all of the packaging is recycled, and if you just put a little bit of effort into it, you can find innovative solutions.
Right.
So yeah, we don't
Right.
use any packaging at all.
Even more wonderful, because with ordering even food and garments, another layer of waste that adds in is with the packaging, because sometimes even for the smallest scrunchie that we order, they pack it in 2 layers of cardboards, which is again put into another layer of plastic. So Dominique, with you and Priyanjali, yes.
Just one thing is that it depends on the client as well. There are a lot of clients who have expectations of posh packaging and who are horrified to find their beautiful jacket, upcycled jacket, arrive in a reused Amazon bag. But I am not. You can't always pander to the client. You have to have a vision, and you have to stick to it, and make people understand that you've received your completely zero waste packaging. And this is why it's true luxury. True luxury to me is when no person or the planet hasn't been harmed in the process. And if you can really take that time to explain, because customers are horrified sometimes. They want beautiful. Who doesn't like opening a beautiful package of something? So yeah,
Right.
again, it's up to you to lay down the law.
Yes,
So yeah.
yes. So with you, Dominique and Priyanjali, like, can we have a look at what you guys make from scrap? Like, I had seen a lot of pictures of those Christmas decorations, and I found them really, really nice. So I
Sure.
want the students also to see a few of that.
Yes, sure. I'm just gonna share my screen, and then Priyanjali is gonna take you through our stories and some of our products.
Yeah.
One sec.
So I'll mention one small thing. For us to design something as well is quite challenging, because we don't always know what kind of scraps we're going to get and in what size. So it's been very challenging for us. But at the same time, we paid attention to a few things. One, we have to make it look good enough for people to want to buy it. So even like Meghna mentioned about packaging, so even when we do upcycling and we do the packaging, we make sure that the packaging looks really cute and nice. So when the customer opens it, they feel good. And also we've been trying to explain to people how they can reuse. So we use a soft kite paper and we give a little bow, and we try to tell them that you can reuse the same thing to gift someone else. So we try and use packaging in a way that can be reused. But I think I'll start off with why we started OhScrap, because for us, we have a lot of fun, and I was designing a lot, so we started thinking of how we can upcycle and make it more interesting out of, like, what can we create out of scraps. So we collected all the different scraps first, and the process itself was very consuming, because we had to find people who could segregate the fabrics for us. Then we had to go through the process of washing and cleaning, because we didn't know where the scraps were coming from. So we started separating size, color, and then what we decided was we're going to work with women who we're going to teach how to make these small products. So we did not initially get into a lot of things. We're going to streamline the products we make, and we're going to make products that people can use mostly throughout the year, except the Christmas products. But even those we created in a way that you can later use it in your kids' room or as a wall hanging. And we try to teach all these skills. And I think that's what helped us, come to this place after 1 year, to be very thoughtful when we're designing these things. So the things that we did was create this line of sustainable packaging. So we started telling people that be a little more thoughtful about what you do. We had a lot of young clients because I felt that there was an age group of 7 to 15-year-olds who were really interested in what we were doing. So we started making these flower clips and rubber bands. Then we made a lot of these sustainable packaging with like bottle holders and potli bags. And then we started to tell people that, when you go to office, instead of constantly getting plastic spoons and forks, why don't you start carrying your own things? So the idea came from trying to convert things that were made of plastic into fabric. And then slowly we moved into different small items. For example, these coasters, some of them, we just got those little squares. So there was nothing much we could do with it. So we decided to go for the coasters. Dami, next slide. And and we were working right now with a lot of people. So we have different channels. So there's a person we work with who we do all our thrifting with. We have a donation channel through which we donate clothes to all the orphanages and the old age homes. And of course, we have all these clothes and fabrics coming to us, and we have to strategize and decide what goes for donation, what goes for upcycling, and what we can thrift. So there's a lot of processes that are involved in OhScrap. It's not just taking the scrap and designing the products. Now we're slowly getting more involved. In fact, we would love to work with Meghna and create a line of garments, because we've ended up with a lot of garments and a lot of little things that clients want to change in those. So we've been doing it, but it would be lovely to open up a partnership, because a work like this, none of us can do it individually. And that's why we've been collaborating with a lot of people. Even our tags are made out of seed, which another friend of ours was doing. She came up with seed packaging and tagging. So we opened our work to many collaborators, starting from weavers to tailors to women who wanted to learn certain things, to other people who are doing more upcycling and recycling stuff.
Right. So, Dominic, you have anything to add?
Yeah, if I just wanna add that. Priyanjali and I, being in the sustainable business, it's you always rethink and research your topic. So we were talking about packaging earlier, and Meghna also was mentioning. So whenever we courier something to a client, there's no plastic involved, but it actually takes a long time and research to find the best solution to be able to have a good packaging, not using plastic, still be good for the planet. And I think it's a constant evolving and questioning of what can I do better, and how can I do it better? And I think it's really embedded in all our processes currently for OhScrap, where we keep questioning ourselves. We are quite new, as it's been a year and a half, but still, you always re-question yourself and say, okay, I'm doing that right now, but could I do it better with less impact on the planet, with a lesser carbon footprint? So I think it's really important to keep questioning yourself as well. There's new technology coming up almost every day in the field. So we discovered 1 month ago that now in India they started produce these biodegradable emailers. So Amazon used the plastic ones that you receive. You all know the ones, the gray ones. So 1 month back, we came across a Indian producer who make them in India, and you can put them in your composter, and they will be composting along with the rest of your waste. And these are the kind of solutions that you are on the lookout for, and that you keep looking and researching for it. And it's great to see that also India is evolving into bringing more sustainable solutions for sustainable business. And it's what is great also with this being in this type of environment is that there's always something new coming up, and there's always new solution, and it's a constant evolving business that you are in.
Yeah, right. So this we have two. I have two more questions to ask to all of you. So this one I'll start with you, Dominic. So what did your personal journey to sustainability or to formulating OhScrap look like? And is there like a personal hero or heroine that you had for or maybe some institution that inspired you to take this journey up?
Well, I think it all started with the way I grown up and I was educated. I think my parents, my family, they were really grounded. Both my grandfather were, having their own garden, growing their vegetables and fruits. Eating, local produce, and yeah, it's all been there since the beginning. My mother is one person which I can say openly reuse probably a little bit too much things, but this is the way she is. She is, and it's probably looking at the way she was managing our life while growing up that has been this sustainable, and the be aware of how you use things has been there since the beginning. I think one of the big turn in my life and in my sustainability journey, because I really think it's the journey. It doesn't come to you naturally. It's a work to be sure that you are sustainable and more sustainable in your daily life. The big turning point for me was having children, and realizing that if I was not making change in my own life, then I was not sure of what future my children will have. And hence starting as much as possible to use plastic. So we are all now, bathroom-free plastic, kitchen plastic-free. So, but it's really been a journey. And of course, my husband, my children, they are all in this journey with me. And, where we consciously make small steps one after the other is in order to be more sustainable. And I think how scrap really started is that Priyanjali and I are friends for a long time now, and we were both looking for her in a sustainable fashion business. She wanted to do something more. And on my side, I'm not at all from the fashion industry, but I also wanted to do something more, because at that time in my professional life, I just felt that there was something missing, and if there was something to be fulfilled, that would be something which had to do with making sure that it would not be harming the planet more.
Right. Thank you, Dominic. So, what about you, Priyanjali? Is there did you have a personal hero to why you started thinking of sustainability in your fashion?
Well, actually, not a hero, but many incidences in my life, I think, made me reach this place in life. Because when I started my profession, I was working as a stylist in Bombay. And one of the things we did was we bought a lot of things, and after the shoot was over, there was those clothes were put in a tin trunk, and you never saw them ever. And there was no solution for those. So I started thinking in those days that already we were creating so much waste, but we never really spoke about it. And then when I was studying in London, I started realizing what actually fast fashion was. Because growing up in Calcutta, my clothes were tailored by my neighborhood dada. And even when we moved to Bombay, like, we would buy very cheap street clothes, but we didn't really understand fast fashion, and we were too poor to buy fancy clothes. So I think it was like Tommy said, it was a journey. So when I decided to come back to India and start working on my own brand, I really didn't think about fast fashion or scraps at that point. I just wanted to work with the local weavers because I realized that that was my interest, which was textile and designing and actually going to all these villages in Bengal because I had not traveled in and around Calcutta. I went to Bombay at a very young age. So I think it was my journey around the rural Bengal where I started working with weavers. But once I started making garments and I moved from textile to garments, I realized that I was also part of the problem because I was also creating that waste. So I think these were the three main places, like the styling experience in Bombay, then studying in London, and then when I moved to an online store for making garments, I started to realize that this would be a good time to think about the waste. And I started using all the scraps I had to make jutis or these little accessories for packaging. So by the time Domi and I met in life, we were both speaking the same language, except that to start another brand was very difficult at that point because, as you know, not necessarily sustainable brands really make a lot of money. So it took me a long time, I think 8 years or 9 years later, when Dominique was also in a place of like a place in life where she could give the time, because we need to give a lot of time to a work like this because there is coordination with different people. There's a lot of thinking that goes into the processes. So by the time we started OhScrap, I think we both were in a place where we were ready to give time to the research, ready to give time to the people. And I think our experience helped us make it into a brand. But initially, it was just an idea.
Right, right. And what about you, Meghna? Like, what was your journey inspired by?
Actually, even when I was in school, I aspired to be an environmental journalist. That was my goal, and I studied journalism, and I even started working as a journalist. When I quickly realized that the story after story of celebrity trash that I was made to write, and this was a while ago. This is before your independent media that you have online right now, which is based actually online. This is the traditional route of newspapers. So while I was working for the Telegraph, when I started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life that would add more meaning, and I always had an interest in textile, but I was very snobbish about fashion because I thought it's so wasteful and so frivolous and so shallow, and I always wanted to do something that would mean something. So I was like, I actually hate the fashion industry, and I think that it's, we all know it's one of the worst industries. I never really thought or saw myself as part of it in any way. But I knew I loved textile and design. And around this time, when I was actually thinking, I did a proper analysis of all the different raw materials I can use, from handloom to organic cotton to, everything. And I came to the conclusion that, obviously the best, most sustainable material to use is no new material at all. And
Right.
even organic cotton or cotton is a very water hungry crop. We were talking about water earlier, and we have a huge water crisis in India. To in fact relate some of the really valuable information that Dominic shared right in the beginning, to relate it to us directly is, there's a huge water crisis in India where there are villages where it's a tanker economy. There's an amazing episode of Amir Khan's, that show he used to do called Satyamev Jayate, on water. If you look up water and water wars and water crisis of what's actually happening in India, you'll be quite shocked. And in this, we are seeing we are taking 15,000 liters of water per kilo of cotton, 4,000 liters almost per jean. So if you think, and we are one of the biggest suppliers of this to the world. So all of that
Right.
effort and water, we are exporting out of the country while our own people have no water to drink. And that's the reality of it. So I was thinking of these kind of things, and at that time my mother, who's a very modest and frugal person, and always we've had fights because if I even buy one thing, she will say, why did you buy this, is it really needed, and she opened her cupboard. She doesn't really believe in shopping. She opened her very small cupboard, and inside were hundreds of saris, like neatly stacked and folded, And I myself was shocked, because before that, growing up, I always looked to the West for my inspiration. I wanted to go to England. I wanted to get out of here. I wanted to wear Western clothes. I never looked back. I never looked inwards. And it was like an aha moment for me when my mother opened her cupboard and I actually touched some of my grandmother's saris, my grandmother who I've never met and who's the lady in my logo. I instantly felt a connection to her. Whereas I was least interested in my grandmother. I never met her. She passed away before I was born. And it was so powerful, it actually overwhelmed me. And I thought that this is it. Because as a journalist writing articles, even the articles I could write about climate change or the environment, I really felt they were preachy and were they having an effect? Who was reading it? Did it have any impact? But when I touched the saris, I realized, man, this is the emotion of it. It has a strong emotional connection to history, memory, and your personal, ancestry and heritage. And it's very anthropological somehow. So I realized that if this is my raw material of choice, I have a chance to actually convince that consumer. A lot of people assume that my clients are very environmental and ethical people. They're not. They're just women who want to look good. And they mostly will go to the mall and buy fast fashion. But how do you convince someone like that, to actually change their buying habits? So that is the exciting thing for me. That was my journey about working with the old material, and it completely took over my life. And as a journalist and a storyteller as well, it had that kind of aspect where each sari had a different origin, each sari had a different story, and it was an activist element that appealed to me, where it's about really switching each customer you work with. I just want to tell you one little story with this, a really short story, where there was this lady who came to me with some silk saris, and they were her mother's, and she wanted to get them made. And she took out the first one. It's beautiful, like purple silk with a gold border. And she immediately, I work with so many materials, old, torn, stained, whatever. So I'm used to that. So right down the front where the pleats would be, were a bunch of stains. And she immediately apologized and said, sorry, I've brought you all these stained saris. You just obviously cut that out and see what else we can use. So then I was just trying to ask her questions about where is the sari, what is this? You have to kind of tease it out of the customer. It turned out that these are her mom's saris, and when her mother was a very well-dressed, well-kept woman, and even till her old age, and she had Alzheimer's, but even till then, she really liked to present herself well, would wear her nice sari, and even in the house. So she was wearing these saris in the last few years of her life, and she loved eating chocobar ice cream. So she would eat that ice cream almost every day. Her family would indulge her. And while she was eating it, because she was frail and her hands would shake and she was not well, all the ice cream would drip down and fall on this part of the sari right in the front where the pleats are. So this is what the lady was saying. So for her, it was anyway a big task that she's coming to make something old, with something old. For the first time, she was doing something like that a little warily. So I said, fine. And I made her a garment. And the underskirt of that, I didn't throw away the stained or cut away the stained part, which would be the usual aesthetic process, That I included in the underskirt. So that every time she looked, it's just there. It's not visible outside. And she loved it. She actually cried when she got it. And just as an example to show you how the aesthetics get reversed, the actual gold of that sari was in those chocobar stains, But it's a process with the customer. The customer herself didn't want those stains. But now I would hazard a guess and tell you that's probably one of the most valuable garments in her wardrobe.
Right.
So that's been the journey with like hundreds of women by now. And each time I also grow as a person or as a designer. And it's the cloth that gives you all these ideas as well.
So, so that means that if upcycling is not just good for the environment, sometimes it is also it's a good way to relive some of the old fond memories as well. So with this, we have the last question. Since Meghna also mentioned about her frugal mom, I was thinking that many of the audience today who must be listening to our session are all children, and they're in school. So we are not really talking to people with real consumer potential. So the consumers are actually their parents. So I wanted to ask this last question of how do you think that these kids can convince their parents about sustainability, and what do you have to tell from your journeys? How do you perceive changes in your personal life after you have taken on this sustainability journey? So we'll start with you, Dominique.
Yes, I was saying earlier, no, that sustainability is a journey. You're not going to be what is called a zero waste person from one day to another. There are some good days and some bad days, and I think it's a process. It's a process. It's a journey. You can start with small steps, and then include them in your daily life, and then if you see them working, then you move to the next step and next action and so on. And this is how I've done it, and I haven't reached the ultimate goal yet of being zero waste, but I think we'll get there at some point. I don't know when, but we will get there. It's just like we don't need we just keep focusing on continuing moving. I think there's a lot of change that you can do. It's either reduce your plastic use, eat less, order less in, and there's so many things that you can do which are really small steps, which wouldn't be too consequential on your life. But when it comes to convincing parents, I think the best way would be first to be convinced yourself, and second, to do your own research. So you actually bring on the table the convincing factors and the convincing facts, so you have an argument and you can argue with your parents, and this is the only way you can convince them to go along and bring them along with you. It shouldn't be conflicting, but it should just be trying to demonstrate that this is the right way to go, and this is the right way to go also as a family. So actually it can be something which can be very bonding, but bonding as well. How we all in there together, and why don't we try to make it a good example for our own family. I think also is the way you act and you react with your peers, and I'm sure around all of you there are already some friends who might be a little bit more aware of what is sustainable or what is not sustainable to do, and I think it's just a question of joining the community. Most of you already probably have access to internet, to social media. There's a lot of resources. There's a lot of people that you can look out to know what to do and how to start. And maybe next time when you go, shopping with your mom because you need one new item, maybe just have the discussion on your way to the shopping mall or to wherever else you go shop, and say, okay, why are we doing this and how are we going to do this? So we are sure that one, first of all, we're not spending too much money, but second, if we are spending that money, are we spending this money correctly in buying the right thing? So I think this has to be open conversation with the family, with friends, and just broaden your community and just try to bring on more and more friends and more family into the journey.
Right. Thank you, Dominique. Any thoughts to add, Priyanjali, on that?
Yes, actually, like Dominique mentioned, it's a journey. So even for the kids, before they start speaking to parents, I think they should start looking into the small things that they can do around the house. For example, to look into their own cupboard and see what are the clothes they can wear, what they can donate, and what they can thrift. They can go into their kitchen and see the amount of plastic dabbas they have. Either they can reuse it to another thing, Or actually, personally, a lot of waste products, I use it to make craft for my son. So there are a lot of little things that you can do with a lot of waste. It could be educational, it could be craft, or it could be repurposing it for something for your house. So these are the few basic things I think they can start at home. And then slowly move on to other things where when they go shopping, to always carry a bag, to introduce that idea to their parents that let's not throw away everything we have, to have that chat about separating the waste. And these small things I think they can start on their own. And once the parents see that they're doing this themselves, or a conscious parent thought that they will do it but never had the time to start this zero waste lifestyle, would probably start doing it once they see their children doing it themselves.
Right. And Meghna, do you have anything to tell the children who are watching this session on what do you perceive as your personal gains on leading this path towards sustainability? And what would you like few ideas that you would want to give young kids on how they can probably talk to their parents or talk to their friends about this, just how to have a conversation on personal choices?
I've also been young and broke once, and then I've also got my first job and started earning money and felt like that wonderful temptation of buying things and just loving the idea of it and the little, dopamine kick it gives you when you purchase something new. And you realize, as both Dominic and Priyanjali have said, that it is a journey. And that you have to, I personally, after going sort of largely off the system and off the grid, except when it comes to obviously the biggest things like electricity, etc. I'm not generating my own solar power or anything, but it is a relief. It is an absolute freedom. It is so great. I don't need to make sure I'm stocked up on ABCD, whether it comes to toiletries or whether it comes to so many things. So what I would say, as Dominic also said, is first, of course, you have to be, convinced yourself. Your enthusiasm, your research, it will, your parents are bound to, also pick up on a little bit of that. If you're excited about it, so will they. So look at your household like a microcosm and look at what is coming in and what is going out. Just try to be very simple. Okay, you cannot be zero waste overnight, as someone also said. It is a journey. So, but first look at it in a very logical and practical way. What goes in and what comes out? These are the overarching large things, So for instance, what comes out are waste. What are we throwing away? One of the biggest things I can tell you is look up composting and start composting and segregating. Get very much involved in your waste management at home. Start teaching your parents, educating. There's so much about composting online, and it's great fun to see the results. When you see your food waste turning into beautiful, rich soil, it is, I can guarantee you the joy of that. You'll probably continue. Your parents will also love it. Set yourself fun challenges. Like in my studio, I have like the toiletries. I have started, for instance, for the last many years buying toiletries from one brand that just uses a cardboard bag. There's no plastic. They're just sort of Ayurvedic powders, herbs. You can use the same thing as a body wash, as a face wash. My skin is perfectly fine. I've stopped using face wash. I make my own perfume. I make my own shampoo. Like, I actually don't have any of these needs, which as a young 20-year-old, I would have thought it is impossible. I can't live without my XYZ shampoo or whatever it may be. And now I see that I'm fine and I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I have very few personal expenses actually. And trust me, kids, one thing your parents will love is if you lower the expenses. That's all you need to find, like, really convince them. So, get into it. You get excited, they'll get excited.
Right, right. So I think that is the catch of the day, that the best way to market sustainability to your parents is to tell them how it can lower their budget. Yes, I
But
agree to
in
that.
all honesty, it's still very difficult to find a lot of good sustainable things in India. It's picked up over the last 4-5 years. But like I said, there are a lot of things you can do it in your house. So even without buying, like start from your cupboard, then move to the bathroom or room. So think about the things that you can declutter and reuse and repurpose first. That would be my suggestion.
Right, right. Thank you, Priyanjali. So now what we'll do is we will have a quiz based on whatever we have discussed. And afterward, we have a few questions from the YouTube. We can also answer those questions. So first, I will start the quiz for the students watching it on YouTube. So I'll be sharing my screen right now. Somdata, you have put in the menti.com link already. Okay, okay, okay. So my screen is visible. Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes, we can. So the faster you answer, you get more points. So the first question is, what is fast fashion? There are 4 seconds is the time, and then you can answer. In 15 seconds, you answer. Is it cheap clothes made of good quality? Yeah, the time is up. So what is fast fashion? I think all of them have answered that it's quickly made clothes sold at low prices. So I think all of the students who have entered into the quiz have answered it right. So I think with this presentation, most of them know what is the meaning of fast fashion. So going to the next question. Is the next question seen already? Okay. What are the consequences of fast fashion? It's 15 seconds again. A lot more people have joined the quiz. So majority have answered it right. So consequences of fast fashion are pollution, waste of resources, and leading to climate change. So that is correct. Next question. What form of pollution? Is it air pollution by burning of waste materials, water pollution, land pollution, or do you think is it all of it? So yes, so all of the above are right. So I can't really say that few of you are wrong, but it creates all of it. It creates both air pollution, as Dominique was explaining in her slides about carbon dioxide emission. So it really is going to create air pollution, and also water pollution, because there is a lot of dyeing and bleaching of clothes, and all these effluents are released into streams and drainage nearby. And there is also land pollution, because most of it is going into landfills, and majority of our clothes are polyesters, which are not biodegradable. Now coming to the next question. Approximately how much water is used to make a pair of jeans? So if you really listened to what when Dominique was talking about water and jeans, I think so many of us think it's 100 and 1,000 liters, but actually it's a lot more than 1,000 or 100 liters. It's a lot. It's 10,000 liters of water approximately goes into making one pair of jeans. Now the next question. How can we mitigate the fast fashion trend? I think a lot of our conversations today was based on this question. So how can you avoid fast fashion? Is it by buying better quality clothes, fewer clothes? Right. So a lot of them also think by stopping following fast fashion blindly. Yes, that is right. And the answer is that you just have to keep buying good quality clothes, and not like every month, and also something that can be worn a longer time. And the best solution is to also buy less. So that's what all three of them were reiterating on. The best thing is don't consume at all. But since that is not entirely possible, let's stick with stopping following fashion blindly, and also buying better quality clothes and wearing them longer. So let's go into the sixth question. So this is a true or false question. More than half of all fast fashion is disposed of in under a year. Is it true or false? I think it's a simple one. Right. So all of us have got it right. So I think a lot of our purpose in doing today's session is kind of we are there because many of us did understand that a lot of fast fashion is disposed in under a year. Coming to the seventh question. It's again a true or false question. On average, most clothes are used 30 to 40 times before being discarded. So this is, I think many of the people who attended got it wrong. 30 to 40 times is a lot, actually. If we used our clothes for 30 to 40 times, it would have been a much better situation around now. It is used under, so from what we know, it is used under 10 times. Less than 10 times is what most clothes are used before being discarded. So that there is a correction there. So this statement is false. Now the last question. A lot of fossil fuels are used in making clothes for fast fashion. that was also kind of very well explained in Dominique's slides. So I think we should get this one right. Yeah. So yes, so a lot of fossil fuels are used in making the clothes for fast fashion, including the transportation and making the big manufacturing industries which make, all of them use fossil fuels as an energy resource for making clothes for fast fashion. So I think we are done with the quiz. We also have to know who is the winner. So Siddhant, I think Siddhant, this was the fastest and got most of the answers right. So congratulations, Siddhant, for joining us on the session and also getting the answers right. So now I will stop sharing my screen. Yeah. So let's take some questions which the students have asked now. So the first question is, from dress, example cotton, and a not a non-biodegradable dress. So this is a question from Sudarmani.
Can you
hear the question?
No, can you repeat the question?
Yes. So Sudarmani was asking if are we asking them to use a biodegradable dress and not a non-biodegradable dress? I think that she wants. Yes. So I think the basic point that she wants to convey is, should we just make sure that all the clothes that we wear, should it be made from non-biodegradable, should it be made from biodegradable materials? Is that how we look at it?
Well, I think yes. So ideally what you should do is prefer natural material rather than synthetic material, if this is the question. So yes. Go for cotton and bamboo, hemp, rather than going for polyester and nylon.
Right. So another question from Basant is, recycling a fabric is an expensive thing and a time-taking process. So instead of it, why can't we just stop using polyester clothes and just use cotton clothes instead?
Yes, that would be an idealistic world. Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's the hopefully eventually the future, but it's not. We're not there yet.
Right, right. So, Priyanjali, do you want to also tell the students that why does fashion industry actually prefer creating fabric with clothes with polyester? Like, what is the whole?
There is actually such thing like fashion industry caters to customers and clients, and even I have never been a fan of fashion industry in spite of being a huge part of it, because there are a lot of flaws in it, and as far as materials are concerned, they are personal choices of the designer. So if a designer is catering to a couture or a wedding dresses, they are going to cater to a particular line. If someone's doing resort wear or swimwear, so it's a personal choice, and it's also about availability. So there are a lot of products, for example, a lot of hospitals don't prefer cotton. They prefer because they don't want their clothes to be crushed. So everyone has different reasons for why they are not using, but again, it's time consuming and it's a little more research and maybe a little more expensive. And definitely some of these fabrics are much cheaper. So it's an alternative. But it's about how much time that brand has or the designer has to actually, or even how conscious that designer is. Though I would admit in the last few years, even Fashion Week has become a little more conscious, which wasn't there before. But having said that, it's not enough. Like our Indian fashion industry still are going ahead and making those same choices. Hopefully, it will change soon, but the changes are definitely happening. I think Meghna wants to add something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say with regards to polyester, one thing I really need to remind all of you is that, and there's obviously polyester is bad, and we all know that it is not the right material to use. But when it comes to upcycling, what is the quality of polyester that makes it bad? Is that it lasts, it's going to hang around forever, unlike the cotton and the silk that will biodegrade, right? So even when it comes to upcycling, guess what we have heaps of lying around? It's polyester. So we
Yes.
have to also be open to using upcycled polyester. And like a lot of the pictures I showed you, the drapey fabrics, the play suits, that's all polyester based. And I am not ashamed of it. I have faced so many boutiques who will not keep my work. I have faced boutiques right from 2012 who say, we love your work and we're going to keep it, but can we just not tell the customer that it's an old sari? All of that exists, but the truth is the polyester garment which has already been produced is there. It's not going anywhere. So we have to come up with innovative ways to if you have to buy polyester, it might as well be upcycled. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because
Right.
it's already there. Of course, going forward, we should not produce new polyester. We
Yes.
should be to the alternative materials, but the problem is these materials never biodegrade. And in some contexts, like Priyanjali was saying, it's an advantage for some, because like the hospitals, she's saying if they don't want creases, that's one thing. Or if you think of a natural silk, of course it's going to ultimately tear. It's a pure material, but the polyester pant will never tear. It can go through a
Right.
lot more wear and tear. So it's a balance, basically. That's all I wanted to say. It's not like I should only wear hemp or cotton, or you have to really make those well considered choices. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Now,
if I may add, or
right, right.
no, I think what also happened is that the fast fashion industry tends to use all this non-natural fabric, which are polyester. And why? Because it's cheaper, and it's cheaper to produce, and hence also once they are in the stores, it's cheaper to sell. So you have for them it's a marketing strategy, no? And of course, if these same clothes were on the rack made in cotton, they will be more expensive to buy. So hence higher risk for them not to have them sold. Uh, but I also want to continue what Meghna was saying, is that when at OhScrap we collect scrap from different tailoring units and garment exporters which are working in Chennai, and it's when we were making our cotton mask for during now. We actually realized that most of the scrap that we are getting is actually reality of how the garment industry is working, is that 60% of the scrap that we are collecting is actually scrap made out of synthetic fabric or cotton mixed with polyester. So we still having problems to actually source real cotton scrap to make our fabric masks, for example.
Right. Now we have two more questions. One is from Siddhant, who is asking again from Siddhant. Um, are there any new kind of fabrics which are being designed or developed which could become good alternatives to current fabrics being used? This is one of his question. And another question that he asks is how to convince people who are really into fashion and who do not place more importance on facts but rather more on how they themselves look. So two questions from Siddhant. One is with regards to what are some alternative fabric that you can use instead of polyester or even maybe cotton. And another is how do you convince people who bother more about how they look and not much about the facts?
Tommy, you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. I'll answer the first part. I think so. There's a lot of innovations. I was mentioning that earlier. Also, when it comes to fabric, there was recently some T-shirts made out of PET bottles. The only problem with making garments out of plastics is actually then when you wash them, these garments, although so because the raw material is plastic, then when you wash them, it still releases microplastic in the environment, and hence they are still, not an ideal way of making garments. I think in terms of garments, I think the best is indeed to stick to natural. So we have the cotton, we have the silk. There's hemp also. There's a garment now which are developed out of bamboo fibers, and there's we hear of innovations every day. So now there is this. A small company, for example, in Kerala, who makes leather out of coconut shells. So I think whatever new innovation we do, I think for me it will be very important that we stick to the raw material, be actually a natural one, rather than using PET bottles. But once again, research and future will tell us. But at the moment, I think sticking to natural is the best of the choices.
Right. Priyanjali, you part of this question with regards to how to convince people who really only bother about how they look and about the facts. Yes, I'll actually come back to a story where I think all of us growing up have always worn clothes either being passed on by our cousins or our sisters or our brothers. And I don't think in those days we really identified with fashion or style. It was about whatever you had in the family and was passed on from one sibling to the other or cousin to the other. But what has happened over a period of so many years that we have identified and figured out fashion and style. But what we don't understand is what you are buying in the mall. 100, 200, 300 people all over the world have the same thing. So you're not really creating an original style. You're just buying something that already thousands of people all over the world have it. So when you are talking to people, you should identify your own style first and what looks good on you before just picking it up. And when you're picking it up, you'll realize that once you identify your own personality and style, you can find an alternative. You can find a sustainable brand who can create those styles for you. Or B, you find a tailor who will make that for you. We live in a country where we have tailors under the trees. In every lane, we have tailors. But if you actually research well enough and ask your aunts and aunt's friend, in India, you will find a great master G in your city. And you can actually go and get things made. We have fabric shops. We have weavers who come into Dastakar Mela and other places. So we have access to alternatives. So I would tell people who are not conscious and still buying fast fashion is to first identify your own style and what you like. And then you will be able to find people who are doing that. Or if not doing that, will do that for you. Because again, buying fast fashion, you're not going to have your own personality. You're going to be buying off the rack things which hundreds of people already have. Right, right. So there is a last question by Basant again. He's asking, how can we take this concept of recycled clothes to the local parts of the country? I mean, this trend or idea of recycled fabrics was not much heard in India. Yes, I would agree, because this is the same. We didn't have so much fast fashion. It's probably 20, 30 years old. Before that, we were all still going to our neighborhood tailors and going to our local shops and buying those clothes. And the longevity was more. But having said that, I'll let Meghna answer this question. Yeah, Meghna is back. Yes. Meghna, did you hear the question?
Sorry. Can you just repeat the question again. My computer had a mini meltdown. Yes.
That's fine. So Basant is asking, how can we take the concept of recycled clothes to the local parts of our country? Because for many of the people who listen today's conversation on fast fashion, the idea of recycling and fabrics is not much heard of at all in India.
I would say just do it. I get hundreds of messages from people who say, "Hi, your work has inspired me. Here are some pictures. I made all these for my daughter from my old sarees. Look, ma'am." Even boys messaging me, guys, men, I've made these shirts. I've done this. I've got this made. So you just have to do it. I think the one thing is it's about quality. I have to say from me in terms of a lot of my customers who are very fashionable women. A lot of them have come to me after very bad experiences with tailors because they're looking for something more in terms of quality, fit, and design. But for the average person who is not looking for some brilliant couture outfit or some directional design, all you have to do is actually just do it. When I started, in fact, I was told by most people is what are you doing? There's such wonderful fabrics available in the market. Why are you making from old? Make it from new. Make it from new. This is what people would always kind of say. But it is you can. I also just started like that, and I just wanted to use the old fabric, and I learned as I went along, and I'm now doing it as an enterprise. But if it's just for you and for yourself, if you get more involved, if you are more engaged with supervising that tailor, or if you have an idea or just give a sample, say there's something you love wearing, your favorite shirt or your favorite kurta, it fits you well, you like it, give that as your sample to your local tailor with all your old cloth, and get it made. So actually the idea is that everybody should be doing this. That's when it starts working, when we take ourselves off the grid, when we stop ourselves from going to the mall. So yeah, I would say just go ahead and do it. Again, as I said, there's a differentiation between high fashion or couture and the everyday clothes that you want to wear. So if it's everyday clothes, you have it. And there's so much, I never went to a design school or learned cutting or stitching. I've learned it over the past few years. I'm not saying that everybody has to learn it. I'm just saying it's possible. You can also learn from YouTube. It's not easy. Yes, I know it's garment, pattern cutting, all of the very practical work. It's better to have real instruction in real life. But you'll be amazed at how much you can learn of books and YouTube and videos and tutorials. And as I said, if you have clothes that you like, replicate them, get them made, And in fact, in the future, one of the things that I aspire to do, if I, can do this, would be to create a free library of open source patterns that I can share with the world, and then they are downloadable and you can download it and get it made. So hopefully I'll get to do that one day. But until then, there's a ton of free stuff online. So use that for inspiration.
Yeah. So it was lovely interacting with all of you today with like so many ideas booming from all three of you together. And I think we wanted this session, the idea was for us to be discussing something solution centric. And I think we have done that because many of the questions that we received from the YouTube audiences regarding solutions. So I think we have hit it right, driven the right points to the audience. And also, I think the primary questions that this session has to raise in the audience and probably in all of us is like to question where your product comes from, and also ask before consuming whether it is completely necessary to consume that product that time, and how can you depend on alternatives which are there for energy, which was also one of the discussions that we had in previous sessions about what are alternative sources of energy. Now we have alternative sources of fashion, what clothes and materials you can do, how can you think of upcycling. So I think if these questions rise in all of our heads, I think we are good to go with this session. So thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Priyanjali and Meghna, for showing examples through all of you to solutions of fast fashion and how to avoid it and all of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gayatri.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for a great session. Goodbye.
Somdata, are we off screening?